Here we go.
The Last of Us Part 2 might have released less than 4 years ago on the PlayStation 4, but Sony and Naughty Dog are already revisiting it with a fresh remaster for PlayStation 5, aiming to bring it up to par with the recent The Last of Us Part 1 remake, and continue to ride the wave of interest in this franchise from the HBO TV adaptation. We can argue all day about whether this remaster is necessary, but it's here regardless, so we best take a look at it. So what does remaster mean in this case, for a game that could already be played with PlayStation 5 enhancements for 60 FPS thanks to a backward compatibility update? Well, Naughty Dog has gone back in and made subtle tweaks throughout the game's graphic settings. Texture quality has been raised, level of detail distances are stretched out a bit further, there's improved animation sampling rates and more that is on their list of jobs done. But they all feel like rather understated improvements. The headline options here are really about resolution and frame rate. There's a new fidelity mode which increases the maximum resolution to a full 4K and is playable at 30 FPS, just like the original game on PS4. But then there's also the performance mode, which is running at 1440p and that's upscaled to 4K, and this targets 60 FPS, which is a match for what the original game was able to produce after that PS5 patch, just without that 4K upscale. And for our money, the performance mode is the way to go here. In both cases though, you can also now use variable refresh rates to get a further performance uplift, though sadly that's not something that we could test with our rather dated TVs. A few years on from release though, and the game still looks fantastic, going from almost photorealistic in its cutscenes to extremely good looking elsewhere. Character models are particularly incredible, especially with their facial expressions. There's just so much detail, even on the terrified face of a poor WLF soldier, that you're choking to death. Strangely though, it's short grass that really lets the game down, as it just looks a little bit more dated than everything else here, and being a post-apocalyptic setting, this is all over the place. It's not that it's really that bad, it's just that the rest of the game looks so good that it sticks out a little bit more here. Other than that though, The Last of Us Part 2 still looks gorgeous. So with the graphical changes out of the way, we are left with the new content, and the roguelike mode No Return is the biggest addition. Here, you first pick a character, each of which has got different abilities and weapons to start. So Abby begins with the close quarters skill book, a machete and a pistol for example, whereas Lev has got a revolver, bow and the archery skill book. Then you choose your path through a sequence of encounters to fight off waves of enemies, whether WLF, Seraphite or infected, and then hopefully fit in a little bit of scavenging before returning to base. Between stages, you can improve your abilities and weaponry, unlock new skills, and generally prepare yourself for the next challenge, building up to that 6th and final level, which is a boss encounter. It's a pretty good take on the roguelike, but there's an obsession here with unlocking everything through challenges that puts a dampener on things a little, where most roguelikes will tend to have more variables from the off. For example, there are 4 types of encounters, but only 2 of them are available at the start, Assault and Hunted. The others unlock as you play, making the mode feel very repetitive early on. It's worse if you don't really like the Hunted mode, where you have to survive against continuously spawning enemies for a few minutes who are already alert to your presence. We had this mode as the only option for the first encounter in a run, and starting with a revolver with 4 rounds and machete, meant that we were pretty much buried under a pile of runners and clickers right away. All of these are a little bit less stressful with human enemies, as they can't rush at you with instant kill melee attacks like a clicker can. Thankfully, after you've completed a few stages and your first death, you can then try the custom mode and disable any of the things that you're not a fan of while still progressing, which is a pretty nice touch. Enemies in the assault mode spawn in 3 increasingly difficult waves, but the way that they spawn limits a lot of the planning that we really enjoy in The Last of Us combat. They just spawn in an area of the level and you've got precious little warning for where they will do so, so they could appear right next to you or with you directly in their vision even. You often can't really place traps in advance because enemies might come from the wrong direction and just make them kind of useless and futile. It's a shame because we love the combat in The Last of Us, but a huge part of that is because the enemies are in a kind of particular place in the level and you can choose how that you go about approaching them. When enemies spawn in a random place and automatically make a beeline towards you, even though they're not actually supposed to know where you are yet, you just don't get the same feel. On the whole, this roguelike mode is pretty good, but it's just not as good as it could have been. The rest of the new content can comfortably be described as niche. It's behind the scenes stuff that is very enlightening, but your mileage may vary depending on your interest in game development. There's the lost levels, which are deleted scenes from the game, presented in the condition that they were in when they were cut. For example, Jackson Party is the first one, and it's only got subtitles, as the voice acting was never recorded. The visuals here are rough and unfinished as well, but it and the other 2 lost levels provide an insight into the development of the game that is very rare, thanks to the commentaries that explain the developer intentions with certain aspects of the level and why it was ultimately cut.
Something we really wanted to do was highlight the way their lives had turned upside down since she went down this path. We had this idea of recontextualizing all of our usual gameplay mechanics that were designed for really violent ends. The workbench, door bashes, throwable weapons, and even the infected, which is my personal favorite. Peppered throughout the level.
It's pretty interesting if you're into this kind of thing, and if you are, you'll also love the director's commentary feature, which has the game director Neil Druckmann and all of the main voice actors, which can be enabled to play over the main game's cutscenes in the making of menu. Spreading this content around a little bit, you've then also got the Grounded 2 Making The Last of Us Part 2 documentary, which will be on YouTube, and you've got 4 episodes of the Last of Us official podcast, which you can get in your go-to podcast app. But these are also referenced in the game menus. Oh, and if you enjoy the guitar minigame, you'll be happy to know that the guitar free play mode in the extras has got way more options than you'd expect, with different instrument types so that you can get really new sounds. It's a fun expansion to one of the breakout features of the original game's release. All in all, The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered refines and improves a much misunderstood masterpiece. It's hard not to be amazed at just how good this game still looks, and it comes with a new mode and some behind-the-scenes stuff to enjoy as well. This is not a huge jump up from the original release though, especially not when compared to the work done for The Last of Us Part 1. But the price of upgrading from PlayStation 4 is reasonable for what you get. For those that haven't played it yet, this will be the best version to play, even if it's just for the no return mode to add some more longevity without all of the incredibly intense emotional stress of the main game. Thanks for checking out our video review of The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. And if you have enjoyed this, then make sure to like and subscribe and do all of the usual YouTube things before you go. That's all that we've got for now, but hopefully we will see you again soon. Goodbye!
Okay.